Lord, make us instruments of your peace.
Where there is hatred, let us sow love.
Where there is injury, pardon.
Where there is doubt,
Faith. Where there is despair, hope.
Where there is darkness,
light. And where there is sadness, joy. O Divine Master,
grant that we may not so much seek
to be consoled as to console,
to be understood as to understand,
to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that we receive,
it is in pardoning that we are pardoned,
and it is in dying
that we are born to eternal life.
Amen.
Here is your WESN News on the Hour. I'm Naomi McNish. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. Ansel Roger re-elected as OWTU president for 7th term. Rough seas alert issued. Beachgoers urged to stay cautious. Prime Minister region lucky to escape impact of major earthquake. And internationally, Canada vows strong response to new U.S. tariffs. Now for the details. Ansel Roger has secured his 7th consecutive term as President General of the Oilfields Workers Trade Union, as he and his rebel slate ran unopposed in the union's latest elections. The new executive, set to lead from 2025 to 2028, includes historic changes with a record 4 women on the committee and increased youth representation. Notable additions include Stephen Kwashi as Vice President and Crystal Boland as Executive Trustee. Meanwhile, Jonathan Bowen has been promoted to Vice President. The newly elected team also features Richard Lee as General Secretary, Sati Gajada Innis as First Vice President, and Risa Ramlogan Joda as Second Vice President. The OWTU remains a key voice for workers' rights in Trinidad and Tobago's energy sector. If you're heading to the beach today, be warned. The Trinidad and Tobago Meteorological Service has issued a hazardous seas alert at yellow level. Seas are forecast to be moderate to rough, with waves reaching up to 3 meters in open waters. Marine interests, including fishers and small craft operators, are advised to exercise extreme caution, while beachgoers should be mindful of strong rip currents that could pose serious risks. Meanwhile, Tuesday the 11th will be mostly sunny and breezy with a few brief showers. Expect highs of 31 degrees Celsius in both Trinidad and Tobago. Stay safe and take necessary precautions if you're venturing out to sea. Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley says the region was fortunate to avoid major damage from the powerful 7.6 magnitude earthquake that struck north of Honduras on February 8th. The quake, which occurred at a shallow depth of 10 kilometers, triggered tsunami warnings across 20 countries, including Jamaica, Haiti, and the Bahamas. However, by late that night, all alerts had been lifted. Dr. Rowley, a geologist by profession, explained that the earthquake originated in the Cayman Trench, an active seismic zone in the Caribbean. He warned that aftershocks remain possible in the coming days. The Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency confirmed that while the earthquake had the potential for widespread impact, no major damage was reported. Authorities continue to monitor the situation as the region remains prone to seismic activity. Internationally, Canada is pushing back against a fresh round of U.S. trade barriers, with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau calling President Donald Trump's latest metal tariffs entirely unjustified. Trump plans to impose a 25% import tax on steel and aluminum from March 12th, a move that could significantly impact Canada, the largest supplier of both metals to the U.S. Canadian leaders warn the tariffs will hurt industries on both sides of the border, while opposition leader Pierre Poilievre says he would introduce retaliatory measures if elected. Economists caution that the tariffs could drive up prices for U.S. consumers, but Trump insists they will protect American jobs. Meanwhile, trade tensions are escalating as Canada, Mexico, and China weigh their next steps. Well, that's news to the hour on WESN. I'm Naomi McNish. Thanks for watching.
WESN.
Good morning and welcome to AM Prime. I'm Naomi McNish.
And I'm Jada McLeod.
Thank you for joining us this morning. Today we're diving into a major global issue that could have serious ripple effect on our economy here in Trinidad and Tobago. With President Donald Trump back in office, trade tensions are once again escalating. His administration has embraced tariffs as a tool of economic leverage, targeting key trade partners like China, Canada, and Mexico. This aggressive strategy, combined with the continued
So apologies.
Yeah, apologies for that.
With us today.
With us today we have Mariano Brown. He's an economist and CEO of the UWI Arthur Lockjack Global School of Business, as well as former Minister of Trade and Industry. Mr. Brown, thank you for joining us this morning.
Good morning, and thank you for inviting me.
Right. Mr. Brown, I just wanted to start off by asking if you can simply simplify the meaning of a tariff for our audience. Let's start there.
Those who are accustomed to listening to the budget speech would not hear the use of the term tariff. In Trinidad, we speak of customs duties. Mm-hmm. So that a tariff is a custom duty, which is levied on imports. So what Mr. Trump is doing is increasing the taxes, mm-hmm. not tariffs, customs duties on imports which come from third countries. He's targeting those countries who have a positive balance of trade. A positive balance of trade is when I export more to you than you export to me. And in this instance, he's looking at the largest balances of trade. Now, China is perhaps the largest exporter to the U.S., and there are a number of others who fall in that regard. Canada is one of them as well. Canada and Mexico are the beneficiaries and part of what is known as the North American Free Trade Area. Now, that treaty was renegotiated under Mr. Trump in his first administration, and the North American Free Trade Area was initially, part of the objective was to create a wider supply chain within the countries which are closest to North America that would facilitate its manufacturing sector. Mm-hmm. And as a result, bring cheaper raw material inputs into its market. One of the chief beneficiaries has been the automobile market in North America. So, for example, Ford imports approximately 18% of its car components come from Mexico and Canada. General Motors is about 36%. Stellantis is about 39%. So that gives you a net impact. And you also have some other manufacturers, for example, Volkswagen. Volkswagen exports into North America largely done in Mexico. So there are a number of other third car companies that will also be affected by this.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk a little bit more about, as you were saying, the North America has come together in a way to sort of simplify and ensure prosperous growth for North American trade. Why is it that in Trump's first administration, he blocked appointments to the World Trade Organization's appellate body? Can you tell us a bit more about the appellate body and discuss how the U.S.'s blockage of appointments has impacted global trade?
Well, the WTO is a successor to what they call the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade. And North America has, for the last 60 odd years, led the flag and led the argument that international trade should be increased. And part of the economic logic behind that is that by increasing trade, the countries that would benefit from the increased trade, exports, imports, it was viewed as a beneficial position all around. All countries would benefit from it. It's called the law of comparative advantage in economics. And as a result, more or less encouraged, negotiated a number of agreements with various countries, and bilateral as well as multilateral agreements. And under the WTO, what is called the most favored nation states, meaning that what you give to one member of the WTO applied to all members of the WTO. So on that basis, trade began to expand. And what we know is that the Asian countries have done very well. In fact, the developing world has increased, has improved by virtue of its increases in trade. And if trade has improved, then by definition, the economies improve. And if the economies improve, it means that developed countries wouldn't have to give aid. So there's a very practical purpose in increasing world trade. Mr. Trump, however, does not take that view. Mr. Trump takes the position that to make America great again, its manufacturing has to go up. And by definition, it will use tariffs as a protective device to protect its manufacturers. That's the real reason why it's increasing tariffs. Now, how the WTO does? The WTO is there to police the system. From time to time, there will be disputes between members of the WTO with regard to what they consider to be protectionist methods, whether they be tariff barriers or otherwise, or non-tariff barriers. You can, for example, include and increase other measures that will stop, for example, in the case of Huawei or in the case of TikTok. It's possible that these things could be affect national security. Now, the WTO is a dispute settlement mechanism. And the dispute settlement mechanism essentially means that you bring it there and there's an adjudication panel. Judges are appointed. And the same way that the CTJ, for example, determines cases on trade in the region. That's what the World Trade Body settlement does. So you need to have judges. And, well, if you don't have any judges, then it doesn't work. And part of the American problem is that it was losing cases.
Yeah.
Right. So and in particular to nationalists or people like Mr. Trump, other companies, we're the biggest country in the world. How could our rules be adjudicated on by a third party? And in those circumstances, they started to push back against the WTO. Now, the WTO is largely the creation of the U.S. And the point is that the rules, they didn't want the rules to apply to them. America is what you would call a big bully. It's a great power. And by definition, it figures because is a great power, it also has one of the largest or best armies in the world, or more equipment than anybody else. It presumes that it could do what it wants. Now, in those circumstances, it fell out with the WTO under Mr. Trump. That continued under Biden. That didn't change. And now Mr. Trump is launching an attack on the rest of the world by saying effectively, we have the biggest market, we are the strongest economy in the world, and we are going to make it difficult for you to export to us because we want to make our manufacturers grow again, great again, and that's his term. And by doing so, we'll use the tariff mechanism. And what tariffs do is increase the cost of inputs at the border. Ultimately, it would cause inflation because by pushing up the cost of the goods, pushing up the cost of imports, effectively the price that goes to the American public is increased. Now that has some negative drawbacks. So it's not exactly what one would call a sensible strategy, but protectionism is now deemed by Mr. Trump to be one way that he can make America great again.
Can you speak a little bit more on these proposed bullying tactics that Trump uses. I saw that you wrote an article, and you likened his use of tariffs against non-trade objectives, and his use of he's hiding behind the term of national security to protect tech privatization objectives. Those were his bullying tactics. Can you explain a lot more about that?
Well, I mean, the moral of the story is that you can use measures. Well, under the WTO, you restricted in the use of measures. There are certain measures you can use which are temporary if your economy goes into distress. And in those circumstances, you have the right to take whatever measures is necessary. That's not the case here. North America, relative to its peer group, is growing faster than any one of the OECD countries. And despite all the comments which were made during the on the platform with respect to the last election, the American economy is in good shape, right, and has been doing much better than its peers. And so in those circumstances, one would not expect that they would increase trade barriers. Now, when you look around the spectrum, if I were to ask you, for example, which are the top IT companies in the world, what are the three companies that would come to the top of your head?
Google, Meta, Apple.
And where do they come from?
America.
Well, all right. So America dominates the market. Right? It dominates the market in those sort of products. It doesn't dominate the market with respect to manufacturing anymore. And that's the net effect of globalization. And also, for example, in the case of NAFTA, if I can get it done cheaper in another country and I could import it more cheaply, but it's part of my manufacturing process, it would do so. So in those senses, foreign trade makes an important difference. And at this point, I use the example of the automobile industry, which imports approximately anywhere between 18 to 40% of its inputs from Canada and Mexico. So when you levy tariffs on Mexico, right, what you're also doing, if the tariffs are going to make the product more expensive, then by definition, the demand is likely to fall. If the demand is likely to fall, it means the companies in Mexico and Canada are going to be affected. They're not going to be able to export as much. Therefore, they're not going to be able to employ as many people. It's not going to earn as much money. So it affects the Canadian economy. It affects the Mexican economy. It also affects the U.S. economy because it makes things more expensive to the consumer. So that's one of the reasons why we said that international trade is good. When you put restrictions on international trade, it makes it bad all around.
Yeah.
In the case of IT, if North American IT is viewed as being strong in the world, and it does dominate in certain areas, certainly with regard to what one would call search engines, certainly with regard to the web services that it now offers, it's probably the largest in the world, right? Amazon Web Services, Google Web Services, Microsoft Web Services, those are the top companies in the world. For example, in terms of the case of our business school, we use Microsoft. Microsoft is our operating platform, and we use Microsoft Azure in the background with regard to its servers and how we store data. So it's important to us. So the options are that there are other companies who are coming up, who are developing, and you would have seen, for example, the furor about 10 days ago, 2 weeks ago, last week actually, with respect to ChatGPT and a company from China called DeepSeek.
Yes.
DeepSeek produced the same type of software, right, at a fraction of the cost of ChatGPT. Now that means that you can upset your competitive advantage. That's what intellectual changes do. That's what innovation does. That's what inventions do. I have a better invention than yours, then by definition I can sell it more cheaply. So TikTok and Huawei fall into that particular category.
Yes.
So that he used, well, in the case of TikTok, TikTok was banned outright. In the case of Huawei, America has said that it poses a threat to national and security with their international partners. So they have said that they will not share information and or deal with the international partners if they use Huawei components in their network.
Bullying
So
tactics
that's an
again.
example of a non-trade barrier.
Okay.
It's a prohibition. It isn't a tax.
I understand, yeah. I just wanted to bring the conversation a little bit back home, closer to home. Can any of Trump's tariffs trickle down to affect how we, as
Yes.
CARICOM countries, compete in the global marketplace?
Of course, well, for example, in the case of, well, not only compete, it can affect the way we do things. Our economies in the region, we import literally between 90 to 95% of what we want, and we import food. So to the extent to which they are pass-through tariffs or things which pass through North America, which are going to be subject to duty. In other words, they are enhanced, whatever. It affects us. And it could affect, and by definition, if it affects us and it affects the cost of our inputs, it will affect our inflation. And, you know, countries and electorates are very sensitive to inflation.
Yes.
I know you all are very young, but the period 2003 to 2015, there was a general inflationary trend in the world. And that happened because you would say that there was a change in the supply chain shock. One country grew substantially. That country is called China. And as a result, demand went up at a time when there were supply constraints. And in particular, steel was one of those items. And the price of steel went up considerably. In fact, it affected the cost of construction. It increased the cost of construction in Trinidad by almost 25%. Right, in terms of the cost of steel, but in fact, the prices of steel doubled. So it affected the cost of construction. All those new buildings you look at downtown, in many instances, the price of steel, those are large, you're talking about multi-story buildings. Multi-story buildings have to use steel to reinforce the supports. So steel is one product, but there were also a number of other products that were also affected in terms of price. Now, increases demand, exogenous increases, just like somebody else coming into the market and ramping up demand, will increase price. And the same way, tariffs will increase prices. So the answer is yes. Tariffs on produce passing through North American production systems that are subjected to these new prices can increase the rate of inflation in the Caribbean.
I feel like a student.
Mr. Brown, are there any viable regional trade agreements or partnerships that could help buffer the effects of these tariffs on our economy, or that the ripple effects that it would have?
Well, the answer to that is yes. You would look to the Far East in particular, but the difference would be transportation costs and how that will affect it. China has moved from being a net importer of steel to a net exporter of steel. So, for example, if you had to think about it, you would probably buy, but remember, steel is heavy, it's bulky, so it's expensive. The longer the trade route, the longer the distance you have to carry it, the deeper the cost. So even if you were to change suppliers and we moved away from North America and we moved towards China, I think we have some fair element of that is already taking place. Not because of the tariffs, but already there was some substitution effect was taking place because of price effect. Right, now, that's where we are. You look at alternative supplies. Now, alternative supplies take time to develop. It doesn't happen overnight. And that in the short run, that's where the confusion happens. And prices change in the short run.
So,
sometimes they don't go back down.
So when you're talking about almost diversifying where we get, who we trade with, I want to talk about the Dragon gas deal with Venezuela. So when navigating energy agreements with Venezuela, given the new contentious relationship between U.S. and Venezuela, how can Trinidad middleman correctly?
I don't know that we can. All right. Hey, look, we're dealing with a great power. All right. Now, Venezuela is on our border. It's close to us. By definition, we should have much stronger trading relationships with Venezuela than we do in almost everything. That's unfortunately one of the difficulties of developing South-to-South trade. Trade generally has followed established routes, and the routes that have been established historically over time are the routes which are closest to countries with whom we have a similar language. Right? So we don't buy from Venezuela as much as we do. We don't buy from Latin America as much as we should because we don't speak the same language. And that's one of the reasons why Dr. Williams, in his term, insisted that languages be on the curriculum of every school. The idea was that we would get accustomed to using language and different languages, and that we would be able to increase trade with our partners who are next door. And Trinidad and Tobago economy is 1.5 million people. At the time, Venezuelan economy was 30 million. By definition, if you start manufacturing for the Venezuelan market, it makes a big difference. And if you widen that, the Latin American continent accounts for what, 300 million people or 250 million people. That makes a big difference in terms of the size of the market for a small country. So the idea always was that we should export to Latin America. And unfortunately, that hasn't worked as well as it ought to have. For the record, we did trade a lot more with Venezuela in the early parts of the last century, but the World War changed that. So now it's a question of rechanging those mechanisms. So yes, the answer is that you can expand, you can look for other markets. The difficulty with Venezuela and Venezuela's proximity is not Venezuela itself, although there are problems there. The difficulty with Venezuela is that it finds itself in a socio-political war or geopolitical war with America. And America has levied sanctions on Venezuela, which affect our ability to deal with Venezuela. That's the problem, North American sanctions. And that has nothing to do with whether we like you or we don't like you. Right? That has to do with North Americans' geopolitical position with regard to Venezuela and the idea of Venezuela should be a democratic country, and they don't agree that they should have a dictator in office. No. And that has affected our ability to access drug and gas, and why we have to ask for a license from OFAC, which is a department of the U.S. State Department, which enforces sanctions.
So how important is the drug and gas deal for Trinidad? And how can what's going on right now between the, as you said, the geopolitical issue between the U.S. and Venezuela, how can the U.S. policy changes jeopardize this?
Well, I wouldn't say change. It can get worse.
Yes.
I mean, change sometimes means better. It could change for the worse. Now, there have been, under the Biden administration, an ease under what is known as the Barbados Accord. And that effectively, North America agreed to allow certain exemptions to its sanctions if Venezuela to hold what was called free and fair elections. Now, the reality behind that trade and behind that moniker that they use to cover it is that North America's refineries are built to blend a certain mixture of oil.
Crude oil, yeah.
Now, the presumption is that you could use your oil. The answer is refineries are built on a, how shall we call it, a very sensitive chemical factories. And it requires a certain type of blend and a certain type of oil to be used to give you the right output and the right price. And if you're not getting the type of inputs, you have to retrofit your refineries. Now, retrofitting your refineries is a multi-billion-dollar expense.
Okay.
And it takes time. And if you're retrofitting your refinery, you can't produce while you're retrofitting, so you're out of money, meaning that you can't continue to sell and can't continue to trade. Now, Venezuela gas has a particular type of compound which is important to their blending process. And that's the reason why the sanctions were relaxed to allow Chevron in particular, to export out of North America. Now, for example, there are sanctions on Russia, right? But Russia provides approximately 10% of North American nuclear equipment, nuclear material, in other words, raw material, which is used to make fissile material, which creates nuclear power. North America has a few reactors, which provides energy into the grid, and every industrial country needs power. So not going to, on that basis, notwithstanding the fact that America and Russia have a very uneasy relationship and they're at odds with one another in Ukraine and in the international market, it nonetheless allowed Russia to export nuclear material. The answer is we need the nuclear material for the same reason why they entered into accord with Venezuela to allow them to import Venezuela's oil, which is important to their refineries, as I made the point. So, but that's only a small percentage. Right now, at the same token, that's in America's interest to do so. It is not clear that allowing Trinidad and Tobago to access Venezuelan gas is in North America's interest. That's where we have to negotiate. That's where we have to develop a case which says, look, this is going to work for you, right? And so far, of course, that the outline of that case has not been made. That's going to happen.
Where do you think that we rely on that? Can you kind of give an estimation in your own opinion? What do you think is going to happen? What do you think is the more likely outcome?
Nothing.
Thanks so much for that confidence, votes of confidence.
Well, let's put it this way: the Dragon Gas has had a long ride, right? It's across. I mean, Trinidad and Tobago are kissing cousins. We're 7 miles away from one another. If you look at the map, for example, the Economist Intelligence map, for example, which maps the border as well as the oil field, you'll see that the Dragon gas field is just about 17 kilometers away from our the Shell's hibiscus platform. And that's one of the reasons that the Trinidad and Tobago NGC, through the Trinidad and Tobago government, through NGC's operating arm, has entered into a joint venture arrangement with Shell to develop the field. But to develop the field, at the time we didn't have permissions from Venezuela and we were not able to negotiate them. But we now do have an agreement with Venezuela. We have an exploration agreement, a 30-year exploration agreement for which we pay a royalty. And that royalty is being paid every month. Now, we haven't developed, so we now have a project where we have the right to lift gas out of Venezuela. Now, the real issue, in terms of the right to lifting gas out of Venezuela, we run into sanctions. Because sanctions indicate that you can't pay for Venezuela, you can't pay for the gas in US dollars. Now, that's one of the key things that most people don't recognize. Most of the international products which are traded internationally are priced in US dollars. America takes the position that the US dollars belong to them. So that anybody using US dollars to price or to pay must have their permission because it's their currency. And that's how the US is able to levy sanctions internationally on different countries, because the lingua franca of international business is US dollars. And in those positions, I could cut off your access to a US bank. Well, if you cut off Trinidad and Tobago's access to US banks,
We're in trouble.
we're not going to be able to import. And the sanctions work this way, right? One, you're not going to be able to do anything with US dollars. Now, if you try to say, well, on that basis, well, I won't bother with an American bank, I'll deal with a British bank. Well, if you go to a British bank and is dealing with US dollars are deemed to be American dollars.
Yes.
And on that basis, they will be sanctioned, right? So that will affect their business. So they're not going to do business from you if they're going to get sanctions. Trinidad and Tobago is 1 million people, right? The world is 7 billion people. North America is 350 million people and it's the largest economy in the world. And if everything is priced in US dollars and my institutions are going to be subject to US sanctions, I'm not going to deal with you.
No, of course not.
That's the power of the US sanctions.
Of course not. So what do you think is President Trump's end game here? He's just holding up progress for the entire, on a global stage. What do you think is his end game?
Well, the economist Martin Wolf, writing in the Financial Times, which is a very conservative English newspaper, it's conservative because it caters to the wealthy and to the moneyed class and those who do business and so on. Writing in his last article last week, Wednesday, I'm interested to see what he's written this morning. He called Donald Trump's policies bad and mad. Those are the two adjectives he used, right? In his second paragraph. Right? So if you have access to the FT, if you could get access to the FT for last week, Wednesday, it will tell you exactly how he thinks and what he feels about it.
I did take a read through it based on your article in The Guardian. But Mr. Brown, I would like to actually take the opportunity to just thank you for coming on and talking us through this topic. I felt like I was in a lecture.
I felt like I was doing a little bit of lecturing myself.
No, I heard it. The way you were speaking with us, you were really trying to get the message across in a way that we would understand, and I really do appreciate that. I learned a lot. So thanks so much for coming on and, lecturing us a little bit. Thanks, Professor.
All right. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Have a nice day. All right. So thank you to our viewers. We're just going to go to a quick commercial break, and we will be right back with you. Thank you.
Do you need treatment for obesity or any related abdominal procedures? The community hospital now offers minimally invasive laparoscopic surgery done by an American-trained, board-certified surgeon with over 20 years' experience. Give us a call at 235-5479 for more information.
The Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist,
where good private health care is affordable.
The best birthday gifts are at thebesttoys.com. Shop for the best brands you love at the best prices, like VTech, Leapfrog, Fisher-Price, Play-Doh, Hot Wheels, Barbie, Cocomelon, LOL, Baby Alive, Crayola. Visit us in-store at Forces Flagship MacBean. Shop online now at thebesttoys.com. Order via call or WhatsApp at 32DBEST to order. And remember, we have the best toys at the best prices.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
Transform your home with PCU Plus. From stylish furniture to the latest appliances, we have everything you need to create your perfect space. At PCU Plus, we offer fair prices and affordable financing options that are cheaper than hire purchase agreements. With convenient locations in San Fernando, Tobago, Arima, and our lifestyle showroom in Barataria, you're never far from the best deals. Visit PCU Plus today and discover why we're the top choice for quality furniture and appliances. PCU Plus. Quality you trust, prices you'll love. Visit one of our locations or find us online to start transforming your home today.
Simon's Musical Supplies Limited. We are the specialist in new and used musical instruments, carrying top brands like Yamaha, Pearl River pianos, vinyl and Sabian cymbals, Remo and Evans drumheads and Fender guitars, just to name a few. Also a wide assortment of music books, pan and accessories. At Simon's, we service what we sell. Trust the leader. Call us now at 625-6412 or visit us at 20 Board Street, Port of Spain. SM Group International Limited, your solutions partner for the latest innovations, brands and competent staff to meet your needs. We provide products and services in the following divisions: executive services, event rental and services, power and heavy equipment, construction and property management, food and beverage, aggregate and sales and distribution. Check out more on our products and services at www.smgrouptt.com. Contact us at 221-7445 or email at info@smgrouptt.com. We are SM Group International, your solutions partner.
Welcome back to the program this morning. I just wanted to clear up. You know what happened earlier? It was a little hiccup. It happens, and I'm back. That's all that matters.
Better than ever.
So our next guest, we have a discussion with a very young, intelligent, sweet young lady from the classroom of Trinidad and Tobago to international stages. Bernice Antoine has made a name for herself as a young leader dedicated to global change. A passionate advocate for social justice, youth empowerment, and sustainable development, Bernice has represented Trinidad and Tobago on various global platforms, working on initiatives that create real impact. Her journey is a testament to resilience, vision, and a deep commitment to making a difference, not just locally, but worldwide. Today, we sit down with Bernice to learn more about how she balances her many roles, the challenges she's faced, and what drives her to keep pushing for change. Bernice, welcome to the program.
Hi, good morning. Thank you so much for having me.
Lovely. Bernice, you've been recognized as a young leader and change maker. What inspired you to take this path?
Truly, it's my mother testament to being kind and really embedding that from a young age, really emphasizing me that I have the power and impact to make change, as you said, not only locally, but global change as well. So like simple incidents, for example, seeing how she cared for the homeless, how she cared for socially displaced. Like my mother and father integrated us at such a young age that we must care for other persons. And so just being raised in that upbringing really fueled my motivation to ignite change worldwide.
Right. Can you tell us a bit more about your journey to the Global Youth Global Changemaker Summit and how you got selected to be a changemaker last year?
Of course, no problem. And so it started actually in Trinidad and Tobago when I was in high school. Right after that, I volunteered with the Caribbean Women in Leadership, where I had the opportunity to sit as one of 5 parliamentary women in a parliamentary sitting. And so I saw how firsthand inspirational women making change and waves in the field of gender equity. And so I took that seed and I really nurtured it. And so when I went abroad to pursue my studies, I really wanted to be connected, of course, to Trinidad and Tobago, but on a larger scale as well. And so I took that seed of inspiration and I planted it abroad, doing projects. For example, I previously worked in Ghana, where I was able to hold a one-day advocacy workshop for primary school students there, working in India, where I was able to develop composting bins. And so my journey to being a global change maker started locally with that seed planted as a Girl Guide, but then being nurtured in the United States, doing all these opportunities, working in Ghana, working in India. And so I used that in my application to go towards my journey to the Global Youth Summit in Morocco. So actually is when I was inaugurated as a global change maker in 2024 in South Africa, given my previous work. And one of my colleagues actually tapped me on the shoulder and was like, hey, you should think about this opportunity to attend this global summit where I was able to collaborate with different change makers in order to enact change and continue that change worldwide, because it's so important that this is a conversation that we're happening worldwide, and we're not operating in silos, but rather we're taking that energy and we're taking that passion and we're collaborating together to really ensure that the change that we make is impactful, but more importantly, sustainable, and it's seeing a difference in person's life. And so it started in Trinidad and Tobago in my beautiful town of St. Anne's, and it ended in Morocco with the Global Change Summit.
Truly from Trinidad to the world.
Yes. Bernice, you seem to be a very, very positive individual. But leadership comes with challenges. Leadership comes with certain doubts. How do you overcome these doubts and challenges in your field?
One thing I would say definitely is leadership is a love affair, and so you must have that deep driving passion for change, and so that comes with coming personally connected with that issue. And so just thinking about my own history, about my family's history, I'm thinking about like women, this empowerment, that's really touches home for me. And so one, understanding your purpose and being very close to that is so important when things do get tough. And I would say an unrelentless faith in God has definitely carried me through in terms of just the challenges of like navigating different challenges worldwide, in terms of like Ghana and then South Africa and just different things that are happening here. Like at the end of the day, leadership is also people management, and we have differences in terms of like different cultures, etc., etc. And so when you think about that, is a lot to think about.
Yeah.
But once you stay close to the purpose of why you got involved in the first place, that's so important. But of course, first and foremost, having that relentless faith in God definitely has carried me through the challenges that I've encountered.
Yes, I love your passion. And building upon what you were just talking about in terms of your culture, do you have any personal anecdotes, any unique experiences that, as a Trinidadian woman hailing from the Trini grounds, do you have any personal anecdotes that has shaped your approach to global change and leadership?
Absolutely. One thing about Trinidadians is that we're so friendly. We invite persons in, and I think that's one thing that makes me stand up when I attend these global opportunities, is how I'm able to quickly assimilate into the culture, because I'm like, oh, I would love to try that. Oh, I love to do this dance.
Yeah.
Oh, like, let me taste that food, you know? And so people always notice my warm energy, like, oh my God, we love that girl from Trinidad, like, boom, 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 big up Trinidad and Tobago, because you just bring that energy, and I still just having that passion and that warmth. Like Trinidadians are so friendly. Our ability to bring persons into a conversation, bring persons and make them feel like home is something that makes us stand out on a global stage. And so just optimizing on that skill has been so essential in my movement and I approach it attending these global advocacy opportunities. And so I would say that's my answer to that question. Just like really embracing who I am as a Trinidadian, just like bringing the energy, bringing the passions, and of course bringing the accents as well. They love our accents.
Bernice, how has your support been? I mean, I would assume you had a good support system at home with your family, but have you gotten any support from your country?
Absolutely. So while I was in Trinidad and Tobago, I was involved in several youth movements. For example, I was involved with the Trinidad and Tobago Youth Ambassadors. I was involved in the Trinidad and Tobago Youth Advocacy Network, the Girl Guides Association of Trinidad and Tobago, the Willow Foundation, and all these organizations at different points supporting me, whether it be like collaborating with me, like if I have to think with somebody, or like I'm developing this project, what do you think about this? Like, can you go through my proposal? Or whether it be as simple as like sharing my social media posts and like giving me pointers and giving me feedback and just like giving me ideas on the whole. There has always been that sense of support that I felt from my home country, from since I was in Trinidad and Tobago to abroad. And so I really appreciate, again, that warmth of Trinidad and Tobago. It cannot be replaced no matter where you go. And so I really just want to thank my country for the invaluable support and invaluable ways that they have continued to pour into me.
That's great. So seeing as how Trinidad would have poured into you, as you would have just said, and opened doors for you, how has being a part of the 2024 summit opened new doors for you?
Absolutely. And so I want to also bring it back to the fact that, like, as you pour into, you also have a responsibility for out of and pour into. So my 100% ultimate goal is to continue pouring back into Trinidad and Tobago, and it stems from having these global opportunities. So one of the ways that these global opportunities work is being able to like listen to persons from different countries and get their best practices. For example, best practices from Bangladesh, or like learning, when I was in India, learning how to do composting bins out of 100% recyclable materials. And so like you pick up things along as you go in terms of like their approach of problem solving, their attitude towards this, or their strategy for dealing with these specific problems, and understanding like, yes, it works in their country. And so when you come to apply to Trinidadian context, you have to ensure that it's hyper localized as well. And so it's just like taking from those different practices and applying it to local contexts is really, really important in ensuring that. But I would say the number one thing I've gotten from engaging at these global platforms is being able to understand how other persons are dealing with those issues in their country, and then applying a hyper-localized lens to Trinidad and Tobago, to our problems as well. And the second thing I would say is this sense of education that things intersect, so different issues intersect. So for example, when I was in Ghana, I was planning the workshop for waste recycling, how to reduce plastic waste in Ghana. And one of the things they mentioned was the fact that when you reduce plastic waste, it actually reduces the instances of malaria, because when you have waste on the ground, it encourages flooding. Flooding encourages mosquitoes, of course, malaria. And so you got to see how the different sustainable development goals were able to collide together. And so addressing this one problem actually addresses this other problem as well. And so when you speak to these global persons from different countries, you get to see how the different issues intersect, and you get a new level of thinking. And so I would say that's the second way I'm able to like apply that global lens to my current situation in Trinidad and Tobago. And I would say the third way, which is really important, is that sense of unity, the sense that you are not in this alone. Like, we face problems, but again, the problems are not bigger than us. We have the power and potential to come together as young persons across the world and know that we're not alone in solving these problems. And that is so inspirational. It has been so phenomenal on my journey to see how young persons across the world are tackling different issues, and it's super, super exciting. Yes. So that's what I would say to that response.
Yes, I feel very inspired.
Yes, really. I mean, it is exciting, and I love hearing all that you're doing. Can you tell us, what are you doing right now? What is your project right now? And what part of the world are you in?
So I'm currently in Hong Kong, and the project that I'm currently working on is called Planet Plate. So previously, when I was in Trinidad and Tobago, I was doing research on food waste, because, you know, as Trinidadians, Trinbagonians, we have cultural aversions not to waste food. You always hear your mother say, oh, waste not, one not. And so I was really confused about how up to 40%, if I recall the research properly, up to 40% of our waste is actually food waste. And so I was really concerned about that. So I began researching it, and I understood it to be is the fact that as Trinidadians, we're very welcoming, we're warm. And so when persons come over to our house all the time, and so we're expected to, of course, have food for them, but sometimes they don't come, or just different things happen, and the food ends up wasting, and it ends up in a plastic bag, in a bin. And so I really wanted to tackle that problem firsthand, which is why I developed Planet Plate. So Planet Plate helps you save the planet straight from your plate. We help you reduce your food waste by maximizing your food storage, saving you time, energy, and money. So right now we're in our MVP stage, our minimum viable product, where we actually develop an app and we're doing user testing, but we plan to launch it on the App Store coming this May, late April or May, to help persons reduce their food waste. And it's as simple as you take a picture of your receipt, your grocery receipt, you upload it onto the app, and it gives you recommendations on how to store the food properly, as well as when the food is about to expire. It also tracks your budget spending. So like, okay, I spent 25% of my budget on vegetables as compared to like 50% on something else. And it gives you reminders if you're living with specific chronic illnesses, for example, hypertension, diabetes, like, hey, maybe you should not be eating that, And so I really wanted it to be as close as possible to the persons that were facing that problem. So I saw that as like young persons like myself who are on limited budgets, and so they want to get the best bang for their dollar when they are buying food as well, but they also care a lot about the environment as well. So we are going to inherit it, so we need to take care of it. And so it stemmed from wanting to cater to young persons who were very experiencing this issue, and also caring for our home, and encouraging my mother to use it, encouraging my grandmother to use it. I'm seeing how like multiple persons are able to benefit from Planet Plate, the tool that helps you reduce your food waste. And so that's currently what I'm working on.
Planet Plate sounds so multifaceted, like it's almost everything in one, and I like the fact that you're also focusing on how it can go across many different generations, not just Gen Z and millennials. I just wanted to talk to you on where do you see the future of women in Trinidad and Tobago, especially as a young woman, a young change maker? What is your vision for women in Trinidad and Tobago, say 10, 15, 20 years down the line?
One thing I would love to see, and my vision for Trinidad and Tobago and young women in Trinidad and Tobago specifically, is increased political participation. Women deserve to be at the highest level of decision making, period. And I want to see an increased advocacy for women standing up and taking their mantles to the highest level of decision making, the parliament in Trinidad and Tobago. And I also want to underscore the importance of political advocacy and political engagement from the parliament, but also on your local level. For example, planning local initiatives, whether that be like a beach cleanup or just like a food drive, etc. Like, women deserve to be in these places where they're able to lead and impact change as well, sustainable change. And so the vision for Trinidad and Tobago is so bright, and I'm seeing how amazing organizations are working towards doing just that. For example, Caribbean Women in Leadership, the Trinidad and Tobago chapter, and many other similar organizations, Girls Impact TT, that are doing just that. And so I'm really excited to see the future of Trinidad and Tobago 15 years from now.
All right, that sounds beautiful. Can you tell me who are some of the mentors or role models that have guided you in your journey?
Well, first and foremost, I definitely have to say God.
Beautiful.
And I will absolutely give a lot of credit to my parents. Honestly, leaving Trinidad and Tobago made me realize how grateful I am for my parents. They have done their absolute best in raising me, and I'm really appreciated the values that they instilled in me from a young age. I've also been a Girl Guide since the age of 4. And so I also want to recognize my Girl Guide leaders, Captain Simon and Captain Helena as well, for just integrating me, making sure they were the first persons to actually give me a project to work on and say, like, you are a growing young woman, like, you have the power and potential, and so work on this project and get it done. So I would have to give absolute credit for them. And as I journey along on my journey, and I collect different mentors, as I encounter different mentors, I'm so inspired and encouraged by them. But I would definitely have to give credit to, of course, God, my parents, and my Girl Guide leaders who really poured into me before I was able to travel around the world, before I was able to do any personal projects. They really saw that seed and they planted that seed in me. So I'd love to give absolute credit to them.
Bernice, I just want to find out from you if you have any plans to come home soon, or any projects that you would like to start at home. Tell us a little bit about that, if any.
Absolutely. I would love to be home soon. I definitely plan to be back soon in 2025. One of the projects I'm looking forward to planning and collaborating on is a sustainability expo. I'm looking to get persons to encouraging them to grow their own food, of course, as part of Planet Plate. It's so important that we understand just like the excitement that comes with growing your own food. So that's something I want to do. A second thing I want to do is more policy advocacy workshop. And coming from the Global Youth Summit, there was a lot of education and capacity building on how to enact change, how to do a personal project, etc., etc. So I'd love to hold more advocacy workshops in Trinidad and Tobago, teaching other young persons, okay, so how do you go out and represent Trinidad and Tobago? How do you enact a personal project that is meant to inspire change or skill development within your own community? So those are the two things that I'm looking forward to planning in the near future. Of course, with regards to the sustainability aspect, etc., with regards to Planet Plate, and then for persons who may not be as sustainability oriented, like knowing that there's still numerous ways that you can impact change within your community, whether that be, again, beach cleanup, or maybe a food drive, or maybe giving away clothes, etc., etc. Just knowing that my core message is that young persons have the power and potential to impact today. So they don't have to wait for the degree. They don't have to wait for this job, or they don't have to wait for that. They have everything they need in the moment to do what they need to do in order to see change within their communities. Like, young persons are not just the tomorrow, we are the today. And so we have to start acting today.
That is amazing. I actually wanted, let's close on the how-tos. How can young women connect with you? How can they follow in your footsteps if they want to?
Absolutely. So again, I have my 3 Ps. First and foremost, power. Understand the power of your story. Understand the power of your lived reality. And it comes with that core message as well, understanding that you have the power and potential to impact. So don't wait for anything to think, okay, like once I get this, then I'll do that. So I would say definitely starting with that power element and recognizing your own power as a young person. The second thing I would say is platform. As young persons, it's really important that we're able to share our stories, because one of the ways that I was inspired to even start this journey is by someone sharing their story of advocacy and of change with me. And so with that, I was able to see like, wow, like I can do this too. And so really using our platforms of change. So whether that be social media, or whether that be, for example, I remember organizing a march against gender-based violence in a part of Trinidad and Tobago, and that was my platform, just going into the community and speaking to persons like, hey, like, it was like I pulled up at a random pharmacy and I was like, hey, I really want to speak to you about like gender-based violence. What do you think? And so it doesn't have to be the traditional means. It could be as simple as just like, hey, like, I want to have a conversation about this. I hear this in the news. I really want to have a conversation about that. So the second thing I would say, platform, take your platform very seriously, whether that be Instagram, social media, LinkedIn, etc., or it'd be like just a conversation on your street. And the third thing I would say is purpose. One thing my grandmother told me that I would never forget is never forget where you come from. And I bring that in every single global opportunity that I come from, that I go to. I understand that I am from Trinidad and Tobago, and I will always and first and foremost bring that experience to me. And so all my responses and all my attitude is geared towards and is shaped by my upbringing in Trinidad and Tobago. And so understanding your core values and what you will stand for as well is super, super important. So that's what I would say in terms of just like making sure that you're able to inspire change. And of course, best of luck to every single young woman in there who's thinking about like, hey, I think I want to do this in my community. Just know that you absolutely can. You can do any single thing that you put your mind to. You just have to start a proposal, gather some friends, and just get going. And trust me, the support will come. Start and the support will come.
That's lovely. Be bold in your pursuit of excellence. That is your motto. Yeah, that's your, and I love that. I love how inspirational your story is.
Yes.
So, Bernice, we actually just want to thank you for coming on to the show today. I learned a lot. And actually, I had one more question. How old are you? And you're doing all of this. How old are you?
I'm 23.
Yes, and Bernice, I actually wanted to point out, I went to school with Bernice. We both attended Bishop Anthony High School, so it was such a surprise to see your name and, you know, knowing that I was able to have this opportunity to interview you this morning. I think that was the highlight. I love knowing that you are doing well for yourself, that you are out there making a change for the better.
Yes.
Well done.
We love to hear that.
Thank you so much. It was absolutely amazing to be interviewed by both of you. Thank you so much, and continue with the excellent work that you're doing.
Thanks so much. We hope to have you back on the program sometime soon.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Hopefully sometime when you get back to Trinidad and you start your project here, we will have you on again in studio this time and talk more about it.
Thank you so much, Bernice.
Thank you. Have a fantastic day.
You
Thank
too.
so much.
All right. Thanks so much to our viewers for tuning in. We're going to cut to another commercial break, and we will be back with you shortly.
When we come back, we'd have a Wild Wednesday for you this morning. Stay with us.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
Transform your home with PCU Plus. From stylish furniture to the latest appliances, we have everything you need to create your perfect space. At PCU Plus, we offer fair prices and affordable financing options that are cheaper than hire purchase agreements. With convenient locations in San Fernando, Tobago, Arima, and our lifestyle showroom in Barataria, you're never far from the best deals. Visit PCU Plus today and discover why we're the top choice for quality furniture and appliances. PCU Plus. Quality you trust, prices you'll love. Visit one of our locations or find us online to start transforming your home today.
Simon's Musical Supplies Limited. We are the specialist in new and used musical instruments, carrying top brands like Yamaha, Pearl River pianos, vinyl and Sabian cymbals, Remo and Evans drumheads and Fender guitars, just to name a few. Also a wide assortment of music books, pan and accessories. At Simon's, we service what we sell. Trust the leader. Call us now at 625-6412 or visit us at 20 Board Street, Port of Spain.
I want to get a tattoo.
You really want
to me. Respond to me how you would respond to me.
The first question I'd ask is why?
Controversial taboo topics.
We get so consumed by church, we forget that we have to live the life of being a Christian outside of the Sunday.
Like you say,
services, yeah.
we think going to a service makes us a Christian.
Exactly.
Yeah. Right. So we are about to hear the second time Pastor J wanted to take a tattoo.
Would have been late last year and early this year.
Oh gosh.
Hope Unfiltered podcast with Pastor J and Ren.
This is 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson. The distance from where we should be in the world in going forward and our commitments with climate change.
The effects of climate change that cannot be accounted for, it's called loss and damage. And we're seeing loss and damage happening so much more in this decade and the previous decade.
The principal term there was this question of the correspondent banking issues.
That is why we're trying to build capacity with this country here, Trinidad and Tobago, and other countries in the region. Man is not showing any signs of stopping or even slowing down. More than half of the forest in Trinidad is already gone.
All the plants and all the animals and all of the nice clean water and fresh air and everything had to be on this planet for humanity to have a chance.
We have small change when it comes to countries that can take decisions, and when they speak, the world listens.
The General Assembly is a very democratic forum. And Trinidad and Tobago has the same vote as Canada, in spite of the obvious difference in size.
It's Wild Wednesday. Please join me as I welcome Ricardo Meade to the platform. Hello.
Good morning.
Sorry, I said please join me, knowing that there's no round of applause for the live audience. So, yeah.
Oh, we can fake it.
We can fake it. How are you doing?
Great, absolutely wonderful, thrilled, joyful. It's just, it's a wonderful day.
You're in a good mood.
Wonderful way. Oh yeah, definitely, definitely. I am in a great mood. Good doesn't really describe it.
Excellent. Care to share some of that great mood with us?
Well, the countdown is really on. We're hours, a day and some hours away from wheels up, as we like to call it. We'll be getting on a plane and we'll be heading to Panama. That'll be 11 of us from the Wildlife Center heading to Panama. But no, we're not going to Panama to shop and to bring back the world to Trinidad. In fact, we are actually backpacking. That means there's no checked luggage, it's just your backpack. So we're going to trip for a week. All that you need must fit within that backpack, 22 pounds, no more. It's a little part of being a little efficient.
Yes, efficient.
Yeah, because put it this way, as environmentalists, it's bad enough we have to use a plane, we're using a plane, but we don't need to take more than we really need. Okay, that's part of the understanding of how we should try to operate going forward. You don't need more than that. So we're going to take what we need and do what we go for, which is to learn, educate, build our capacity, and come on back and teach the younger volunteers and other people who want to join the establishment about what we have learned. And we intend to learn a lot, because from Panama is just 8 hours, we head over to Belize.
Oh.
So while in Belize, we have Wild Tracks, we have the Belize Raptor Center, we have the Belize Zoo, so many places there in Belize to learn from. We'll be learning, yes, Raptor Center, Birds of Prey, they do some amazing work. We'll be learning to use the X-ray machine, so we're going to come back and hopefully get our own X-ray machine so we can do our radiographs in-house. So less stress on the animals. Instead of getting the animals in, taking them to a veterinary hospital, we will have it right there available in our wildlife hospital. So that will improve time, quality of service delivered to these animals, and hopefully increase even further our release rates. So it all comes down to the animals. Then we go across to Guatemala.
You go in Central America coming down.
Yeah, we go to Guatemala. They have one of the best wildlife sanctuaries in the world. We have to experience that because we're also moving locations. And when we set up some of the protocols and things that we see there, we hope to employ here to raise our standard to that international standard. And then on the last night, really, we dock into Mexico. And Mexico is more of a chill out, but there are some wildlife places around that we intend to get in, but no pressure on anyone. It's just after a week of just going and a little sleep, just a little chill, a little tequila.
Well, wildlife, yeah, wildlife.
Right, yeah, get wildlife, you know.
After 2 shots of tequila, wildlife.
Yeah, the nightlife represents a lot of wildlife. So, and then right back over to Belize and back to Trinidad, back to reality, as they say.
And backpacking 22 pounds. Okay, so 7 pairs of underwear, change of clothes, and a toothbrush.
Pretty much, you know. You have your underwear, your socks, your boots that you're wearing, what's on your clothes, what's on your body is one set, and it's minimal.
You're just good to go.
It's just what you need. You don't need anything more, you know. You don't need to have your hair dry and do all your hair and stuff like that there. A ponytail. I intend to do my hair as minimal as possible, so I will be cutting mine. You know how I comb my hair, right? Have you seen me comb my hair?
No, I haven't.
Really, it's just a matter of doing that. And I'm ready for them. I'm ready for them. So I'm already, I don't just talk it. I'm living a life that just takes a little less resources out of this planet, so we can leave something for the future generation.
Now, you've brought a guest with you. I'm thrilled for you guys, by the way, and enjoy it, make the most of it. But we've got a VIP guest with us this morning.
Yes, a very iconic animal. If you had asked people, which animal represents Trinidad and Tobago?
Which animal represents Trinidad and Tobago? Papaboa.
You know that's my nickname, right?
They call you Papaboa?
Yeah.
Okay, well then
not
Papaboa.
Papa Bear.
People might probably say, honestly, Scarlet Ebis. That's the first thing that's going to come to mind because it's...
But that only represents Trinidad. But the hummingbird represents Trinidad and Tobago.
Mm-hmm.
You don't see the scarlet ibis everywhere, but you see the hummingbird everywhere. Let's start off with Caribbean Airlines.
Yes, yeah.
Their tail fin is the hummingbird. The police service, in the middle of their star is the hummingbird. TT Post.
It's the hummingbird.
Our 5-cent piece, or is it all 1-cent piece? A $20 bill. So it's so many. It's everywhere.
Are we doing this currency game again?
No, we're not going to do currency game, but it's everywhere.
Yeah, it is.
Right? It's everywhere because Trinidad and Tobago was known as the
Land of the hummingbird.
Right, and our original name, right? I ask this a lot, and people are very confused. That's why we have to keep pushing and pushing education. I ask people our original name, and people are like Trinity and so on. I'm like, that is when Columbus came here, okay? And he didn't see any Trinity Hills, okay? He told Ferdinand and Isabella, the next land that I discover in the New World will be named for the Holy Trinity. So if he landed in Tobago, Tobago would have been called Trinidad.
Not Magdalena.
Okay? So people need to understand that. But before Columbus discovered or arrived here, and, word has it that he actually never put foot on Trinidad, but, his people, the Spaniards, came here. We had a name. They never used to say, people lived here, and they never used to say, over there, we're going over. So it had a name.
As we do now.
Right? Yeah, there's a name. In fact, there were two names. One is Airi, like Airi village down in Princestown, and the other is Yeret.
Not Irie. Not Irie.
Yeah, Airi is the real name. Airi and Yeret. So that was our name. So when the kids in Venezuela said, Mom, I'm going into the dugout this weekend. Where are you going? Well, we're going across the Yeret and we're just going to hang out there. There's a nice beach down there. That's what it was like. So the truth is, the Vennies were here for a very, very long time. This was their backyard. This was their playground. This was their down the island. Think of it that way.
Well, they said they suggest that TNT broke off from South America.
Yeah. The geography and the geology proves that. There's no doubt about that. And that's why we are very different from any other Caribbean island, including Tobago. Tobago is volcanic and coral. And we are literally break off on those mountains and hills and carried on. That's why our ecosystem is so diverse and resembles more South America than the Caribbean islands.
So what's the name of I think you could bring VIP guest on set.
Our guest today is our iconic animal in Trinidad, our iconic bird. It is the hummingbird.
Can we get a zoom in on that so people can see? The first thing is, I've always found it fascinating how they fly and flutter so quickly.
These birds exist, but science almost says that they shouldn't even exist.
I'm actually hoping that the viewers can see the bird properly. But anyway, as you were saying, Ricardo.
Yeah, science says that they shouldn't exist. How fast does a human heart beat?
68 times a minute.
68, 72, 100 and something if you're, galloping full speed. These guys, 1,200.
1,200?
So their heart beats 1,000 times faster than ours.
And I guessed 120.
1,000 times faster than ours. They're just amazing animals. So they need a lot of energy. Hence the reason they visit the flowers to achieve their nectar, which is high energy. If you drank a cup of nectar, you would probably fly around this room. You would probably grow wings yourself. That's a lot. So for their tiny bodies, that nectar which they derive from each flower, it's like serious energy drink.
You said something that science suggests that they shouldn't exist. Why is that? Because of the heart rate, because of the amount of energy that they consume?
Yes. So their quest throughout the day is basically staying alive. They have no time to really rest and chill. Very short space of time. If they go for an extended period of time without caloric intake, eating or drinking that nectar, or even eating some of the insects, they could go into a coma and die.
So how many flowers do they have to visit on a daily basis?
Well, it depends on the type of flowers. Some flowers, like an immortelle, would have a lot more nectar than something as small as a vervine or a rostrata. So some flowers are tiny, some are larger, but they know what they need and they just keep going. And the amazing thing with these birds, they remember the flowers that they visited.
Really?
Yes. So they don't have a sense of smell. They can't smell. Most birds cannot smell. So they remember, they map out the flowers, and you see them just going and going and going. But this bird is just amazing.
What species or subspecies of hummingbird?
The most common one, the copper-rumped hummingbird. Now, Trinis believe that there is one species of hummingbird, and they're all green. That's not true. We have what's considered one of the most beautiful hummingbirds in the entire world. So let's go back there. The Europeans were fascinated when they discovered the New World and they found for the first time hummingbirds. Because the only place in the entire world that hummingbirds exist is in the Western Hemisphere. There's none in the old world, no hummingbirds. So there are about 350 different species of hummingbirds.
Oh, wow.
Of which we have 19 here in Trinidad.
19.
19. So there's a lot in South America and a tremendous amount in North America also. But why Trinidad also became known as the land of the hummingbirds is that people started capturing these animals and literally killing them to send them back to Europe. So they were pumped into barrels with salt, and then they would be shipped to Europe, England. And it would have on it, place of origin would be Trinidad and Tobago. So all the hummingbirds coming into Europe, no matter where they're from, came through Trinidad and went to Europe. So further given the name, land of the hummingbird. Right? But we only have 19 different hummingbirds here. But they are amazing. And the most spectacular one is the ruby topaz.
I've got to go look that up, to be honest with you.
Well, put it this way. Most hummingbirds have the name of a precious or semi-precious stone for their name. The ruby topaz has two. Rubies
and topaz. This guy looks like an emerald.
Yes, he has that emerald that gives, that's the typical hummingbird color, but it will have the copper type color in his rump, his butt, so hence the name copper rumped hummingbird. Now, this guy, the reason we have him in a cage, why do you have a hummingbird in a cage and you have the naysayers already?
Yep.
This guy shouldn't even be alive today, but he is. We got him up in St. Augustine, up in the hills up there, when somebody up there, what's that area up there?
Santa Margarita.
Santa Margarita, yes. Up there, we got a call a little more than a month ago for this hummingbird as a broken wing and just sort of going in circles on the ground. And I was like, oh gosh, we cannot fix a hummingbird's wings. It's too tiny. But we can give it an opportunity where it can fix itself. It can heal itself, bones fuse and so on. So we kept this hummingbird. We've kept it for more than a month now, and you see what it's doing.
Yeah.
It has gone from flopping and spinning on the ground. The first day that it got up on a perch, we were ecstatic. Then it got to the other perch. Now it's able to hover. So now, from tomorrow, it goes into a very large flight cage, and we're going to see if this bird can really perform functions to be able to release back into the wild. It's just amazing to know this bird went from being on the ground, flopping around, and we've kept it alive and well as an adult. So right now we have a baby in our care, and we just released one about a week and a half ago.
This is the adult?
This is the adult.
Okay.
This is the adult.
Now I'm curious to know.
Yes, they're tiny. They're tiny.
Wow.
Hummingbirds are tiny.
No, I know hummingbirds are tiny. I'm just like, this is the adult.
Yeah. They are tiny. So the one we got in, just imagine what they call that, a TikTok? The little
yeah, those little videos.
Yeah. Right, that's about the size of an egg.
Oh, TikTok is different.
Right, yeah, you see what they got us now? Tic-tac. That's the size of their eggs.
Really?
They usually lay about 2, and they hatch from there. And so we got one probably a week after it hatched. And it has been in a week time. I looked at the bird when it came in, and I looked at it yesterday or day before yesterday, and I was shocked to know it was the same bird. The rate of growth, unless you're seeing it, it's just amazing when you go like week by week. So in the next couple of weeks, this bird is going to be flying, hovering, and ready to get the exposure and the training to go out into the wild.
No, I'm so glad that this guy or girl, are we able to tell?
I believe it's a guy. The colors are usually much more vibrant than the male. The females even sometimes look like another hummingbird. But yeah, we believe this is a young male.
Males are usually bigger or smaller?
A little bigger, I believe, in the hummingbirds. But in most birds, the males are bigger, but certain species like the raptors, the females are bigger, and so on and so forth. So hummingbirds it's just, their whole existence, like I said, it's just, when you read their heartbeats and their wing rate, it's just amazing.
Actually, tell us about the wing rate, because we spoke about the heartbeat, but the wing rate.
Again, also over 1,200. It varies. It can go up to, they believe, as much as 1,500 flaps. And they're the only birds that can fly forward, backward, up, down. They can, it's like an agile drone. Any direction of flight. So they can go into a flower, back out of it, true reverse, not falling backwards. And the funny thing about them, they cannot walk.
Really?
They cannot
walk.
walk.
Because I've noticed it's not necessarily like crawling, just hopping, flying on the...
They don't have proper ankles So they can't articulate that way. So they can hold on to the perch and flop and hold on, but they can't walk. And the other bird that likes that comes to mind, there may be others, but the other one that we have here in Trinidad comes to mind like that is the oil bird. Because you've dealt with oil birds.
Yes,
they
oil
don't
bird.
walk. They don't walk at all, you know. They might give you a little crawl around, but they fly. Look at that, look at that. There you go. See? The agility.
Look at the colors.
Within, there you go. It's just amazing. When we saw this bird doing that, it was just, you know, we almost overcome with joy. It was just amazing to know that we finally were able to provide the proper diet, environment, nutrients for the animal to be able to heal itself.
Ricardo, I'm curious to know, and I'm pretty sure I've asked you this on the program before, but you know, it's the dry season. We're experiencing drought-like conditions. It's only going to get worse. And some people like to leave out water. Some people like to leave out fruits just for all the animals. Who, a lot of people actually buy hummingbird feeders and they fill it with sugar and water.
Yes.
Is that something that is okay to do?
It's like your intentions are good, but without understanding the full concept, you can do a lot of harm. One, do not use brown sugar. Forget the concept about it's healthier and so on. It has too much iron, which will lead to problems with the liver of these tiny animals.
Yeah, very tiny animals, yeah.
Then also, you should, if you're buying a feeder, you should buy a tiny feeder and try to change it as often as possible, because that water will sour, it will turn, and it will end up giving the bird a bad infection where it can't even open and close its beak properly, and it will die. So you love hummingbirds, you want them near your home, but by doing the wrong thing, you can kill them.
And that's
you can harm them.
That's a painful, that's them suffering.
Yeah, it's a painful death to just see this hummingbird sitting there with its beak open, throat swollen, can't eat or drink. Yeah. It just suffers and dies.
So then what should people do? What's your best advice?
Put out for plants. Plants are a win-win all the way. So if you plant what we call hummingbird plants, a lot of lantana, it's a great one. Very cheap plant, probably $12. Lantana produces lots of flowers, has a pleasant scent, it looks beautiful, and it attracts hummingbirds. And there are quite a few other. The tubular type plants with flowers, rostrata and so on, produce, even heliconias produce. I wouldn't tell you to go to Immortelle unless you have space. Immortelle. The Erythrina bidwilli, which is a vastly flowering Immortelle, beautiful red plumes, produces flowers year-round, and you will get them to come the natural way, the proper way. Plus, you'll get a lot of other birds also. You will get shade. It will keep your area cool. It's just an amazing plant.
You don't necessarily advise purchasing hummingbird feeders?
No, I don't. I really don't advise unless you have gone through the process of knowing and understanding. But then imagine this, you did your hummingbird feeders there and you put them out on Thursday, and Friday you went down Mearo and you had a great weekend, a long weekend there, and you come back up and you see the hummingbird dead because the nectar went sour, right? Because you had no one home to change it for you, you know. So the natural way is the best way. If you really know, there are people who know what they're doing and dedicated. They understand about even sanitizing them, even just changing them. You can't just change the nectar in them. You have to sterilize the bottles and the feeder part of it and stuff like that. So not many people are that OCD that they can do that all the time. So if you can't do that, just plant the flowers, beautiful flowers. Enjoy the oxygen from it and enjoy the beauty.
How is this extreme dry weather, drought-like conditions, how impacting upon these little guys? They're a lot smaller, their metabolism is a lot greater.
Well, they depend on flowers, and flowers are literally in bloom right now. So they've got, now with a little rain has helped some of the trees push out some more flowers. And, you know, from mango trees, you name it, everybody who's flowering, they will visit and try to get something from there if they can. Purely nectar. But they also eat insects,
Okay,
because
so
they can't live, they can't grow bones and tissue and so on without protein and fats and fatty acid. So they do consume a lot of insects. And we have some amazing people in Trinidad in terms of photography, and there've been quite a few captures of the hummingbirds just about to snap a little fruit fly out of the sky. So you'll have to put fruits out. When you put fruits out, sometimes you see a hummingbird passing by. It's not for the fruit.
It's for
the
flies.
It's for the flies.
I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised when you put him in the fly cage more because he's very active, very, very active.
He has mastered, he has earned his wings, as it were. He is just, it's just a joy seeing him from literally, I'm telling you, just spinning on the ground because with a broken wing, he cannot articulate that. So the one that can work, he's moving it and it's causing him to just go in a circle all the time. And now, and I'm gonna take him back up to Santa Margarita. We have the papers. We're gonna find that lovely lady who called us. We're gonna take this bird back there to release it because I know she's not gonna believe that it made it. When she asked me if it's gonna make it, I said the wing is broken. We can't fix it, but we will try to give him the condition so he can fix himself.
So you can say this is, to an extent, a miracle.
Yeah. You use that word there. Yeah. Yep. But it's part of it is there you go, feeding away.
What is he feeding on?
Well, there's nectar in there.
Nectar?
There's nectar in there. Yeah, we make nectar. I'm not going to reveal the formula, but we make nectar for him. So he flies about, he needs his energy, he goes after it. He's able to recognize it.
And again, he is flying this morning, and so he's,
They're very visual, right? So that's why on the top of the container, that funny looking flower thing there, it sort of mimics the flowers that he would see outside. So
okay, I got you.
Yeah, so it targets him and homes him into the feeding hole. So he knows what he's doing. He knows his feeder very well. It's just really amazing. I'm really excited to present this animal this morning. A lot of people don't understand what we do in terms of rehab. This bird would have been left on the ground, and I've seen within an hour ants take over and absolutely decimate a hummingbird.
Still alive?
Huh?
Still alive?
While he was alive, they came in and they killed him and ate him. Wow. So all that was left was skeletal and feathers. They took everything else within an hour. So the lady saved this bird, and then we had it, and now he's ready to go back. And this is what it all comes down to. Our trips to South America, to North America, wherever. It's about doing better to save the animals. And in doing so, we learn so much. These guys are also pollinators. They're very important animals for our existence. And the fact that they're beautiful just adds a whole other level of wow on it.
I'm thrilled, and I'm so proud, and you got to videotape tomorrow when you put him in the fly cage, because even this morning he's been so active. And
yeah.
What a treat. What really was a treat. Thank you very much, Ricardo. And, well, thank you for being a good guest.
Yeah.
Ricardo, to you and the team, all the very best. Enjoy the next week. I know it's non-stop. It's non-stop, but it really sounds like an adventure for a lifetime.
Yeah, and we hope to come back and be able to do so much. So part of the thing is that when I come back and I speak the language of conservation, the volunteers would understand better and can better dedicate themselves towards the cause because they know what the cause is about.
And don't forget to pack an extra underwear. Very important.
Flipping on the other side is not an option? I was told that's one of the best ways to backpack.
Good luck to everyone who's camping with Ricardo. And don't forget to brush your hair.
Oh yeah. Gotta look sharp.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us on AM Prime this morning. Always thrilled to have Ricardo Mead and any of the volunteers here on AM Prime. And thank you very much to our friendly guests. Really, what an absolute treat. I'm Keaton Shaw wishing you a great day ahead. And let's not end the show with me. Let's end the show with this beautiful, beautiful
couple ram hummingbird.
There you go. Can we get one more close-up before we bid farewell? We'll see you again very soon, ladies and gentlemen. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
WESN.
We are tackling the hard-hitting topics, some controversial topics, some topics we sweep under the rug. You don't always have to forgive in a relationship for it to move forward.
If it is you are in a situation where you forgive the person, but to the detriment of yourself, what are you really doing?
It is very uncommon for somebody in
the younger age group to have dementia.
Atheists don't not believe?
Is that I can't disprove God, but you also can't prove God. So we kind of at a stalemate.
We'll focus on the woman who's being the victim, or the man is being the victim. We exclude the children.
Folks are trying to study the underlying brain mechanism to figure out how does this particular disorder happen in the brain? How is the brain processing this?
Don't worry about AI. Worry about humans working with AI.
Are you willing to learn new skills to stay relevant for the future job market? That's the challenge that people are going to struggle with.
Join me, Dr. Nalini Kokram, on What's Up Doc, where we discuss all your burning questions concerning health.
Trinidad and Tobago is among one of the highest risk group of patients that develop this form of genetic breast cancer.
What I'd like to take home from a short interview like this, screening. You must screen.
Because it's silent.
It's silent.
Yeah.
And because it's silent, you don't know it's there.
What's Up Doc, every Tuesday.